My name is Marlena Robbins. She Diné nishle, tachini nishle, todachini bashichin, todakoja dashiche tabahan dashinele. I am Navajo from Segahotzane, Aro, Todne Siladan, which is also Windrock, Arizona, and Crystal, New Mexico. I'm a visual artist, and first and foremost, I'm a mom. As a visual artist, I enjoy diving into the history of a photograph and really asking the question of who, what, when, where, how, why. Why was this photograph taken? Who took it? What is the context underneath this photograph? So the work that I created for the show, I created 2 paintings that are based off of photographs from Bob Fitch's archives of a protest in 1974 in Farmington, New Mexico. The protest was in response to 3 Navajo men who were murdered, very brutally murdered by 2 white teenagers. The 2 teenagers were what is called Indian rolling. It was their form of camaraderie, initiation, coming of age, coming into manhood. It's an extremely harsh history that often is overlooked and forgotten and swept under the rug, but is very deeply tied to our own identity as Navajo people, that this really did occur. It's a factual part of history and needs to be acknowledged, accepted as truth, forgiven in whatever capacity that looks like, and reconciled with, which is always easier said than done. And I think that creating pieces that are tied to this very specific point in history allows for those conversations and those dialogues to be opened back up and shared in, because the pieces that I've created today are, even though they're very much tied to a specific point in history, are very much relevant to the political climate, the racial climate that we find ourselves in today. The piece that I created that says, "You are on native land," is tied to a picture, an image of a Navajo grandmother who's sitting in the back of a truck next to a protest sign that says, "Farmington is on Indian land." And I really liked how in our current state, there's a indigenous-owned business called the Urban Native Era. And their slogan, which is very popular, and you find their clothing, you'll find it printed on clothing, on beanies, sweaters, shirts. It's been very popular across Native country, and it's also found its way into popular hiking stores like REI. But how this one slogan says, "You are on native land," which is very simple but very profound in its understanding of indigenous issues. The land back movement, how it's very relevant today, but it was also very relevant in 1974. And this phrase, this slogan, these words have spanned time and have spanned history. With Slaughter the White Man, I think it's definitely opened up a lot of conversations and challenging, difficult emotions that are tied to it, and kind of unveil the layers of discussion that can come with a piece that in some eyes may be seen as controversial or offensive or difficult to digest. I created the piece in response to this very specific point in time, because in the cohort with Rick Cassini, we were asked to dive into New Mexico history and culture and religion and politics. And we met with the archivist at UNM, who is an instrumental part of this entire process. And when I viewed the images from Bob Fitch's archives, I was immediately drawn to it, because it was not only personal for me, because from hearing my parents' stories, but also being a Navajo woman and tying it back to a place and a time that I am in some way connected to. So with Slaughter the White Man, it made me think of like trauma inflicted on people of color. Like that's more socially acceptable. That's more of a publicly accepted genre in the art world versus a piece that challenges the dominant race or the dominant society or the dominant culture. So for example, Slaughter the White Man put up against merciless Indian savages in the US Constitution, putting those up against this very specific sign that was written on cardboard and written in response to a very horrific murder and border town racism, discrimination, prejudice. But I do ask the viewer to sit and understand their own emotional connection to this piece. And we're humans. We have a wide range of emotional depth within us to feel certain emotions at any given moment. As an artist, I advocate for art that heals, art that generates conversation, art that ignites and sparks discussion, and kind of invites people into a space to think and share in dialogue and create new narratives together.